I've replayed that afternoon 100 times. The small detour, the unexpected clue, the way reality shifted just a few degrees. Not enough to call it an earthquake. Just a tremor. But enough that something in me woke up. It was a Saturday. The weather was soft, blue-skied and forgettable. We had a dinner reservation downtown, nothing fancy, her idea actually. One of those places with artisan pizza and craft cocktails, the kind she used to roll her eyes at. Now she'd started suggesting them. Little changes I didn't think much about at the time. We were just about to head out when she realized she'd left her phone charger in the car. "Babe, can you grab it for me? It's in the glove box, I think." "Sure. No problem." I grabbed the keys and headed out. I opened the passenger side and leaned in. Not expecting anything, just running through mental notes for the day. I saw the charger right where she said, coiled messily near the center console. I reached for it. That's when I noticed it. A blazer, neatly folded on the back seat. Not tossed. Not forgotten. Deliberately placed. It was a man's blazer. Dark navy, faint plaid pattern, expensive looking. Not mine. Not anyone I recognized. At first, I thought maybe it was one of her brothers. He'd visited a few weeks back. But that wouldn't make sense. Why would it be in her car now? I turned it over, checking for anything obvious. That's when I spotted the hotel keycard, wedged barely inside the chest pocket, just enough to peek out like it wanted to be found. A white sleeve with Linden View Hotel, stamped in soft gold lettering. I'd heard of it, boutique, high-end, 30 minutes across town. The kind of place that thrives on discretion. Inside the sleeve was a keycard. Room number 406. My heart didn't drop immediately. It sort of hovered, like my body refused to panic without permission. Instead, I told myself there had to be an explanation. Always start there. That's what reasonable people do, right? But then I glanced at the floor mat and saw something else. A printed receipt, folded and damp at the edges. A rideshare printout. I picked it up. Drop off. Linden View Hotel. Time: 9:43 p.m. Date: 2 nights ago, Wednesday. The exact night Lauren told me she'd be working late at the office, finishing reports before month end. I remember because she came home near midnight, looking exhausted, saying she was starving but too tired to eat. We didn't talk much. She went straight to bed. I stood there for a long moment, one hand on the car door, the other gripping the charger and the receipt. The blazer stared back at me. It wasn't just a jacket anymore, it was a question. One I didn't know how to ask. Eventually, I went back inside. I handed her the charger and sat down to tie my shoes. I kept it casual. "Hey, whose blazer is that in your back seat?" She barely looked up. "Oh, Eric's," she said, like it was nothing. "He left it after the offsite on Wednesday." I blinked. "Eric?" "Yeah, from marketing." She waved a hand, then went back to fixing her eyeliner in the hallway mirror. They booked hotel rooms for everyone. He crashed in one and forgot his jacket in my car. I said I'd drop it at his place this week. I tried to act like I bought it. "And the key card?" "Huh?" "In the pocket," I said, voice even. "There's a room key in there. Linden View." "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." She didn't miss a beat. That's where they had the offsite. Probably just left it in there. She straightened up and turned toward me, all calm efficiency. Her tone had that deliberate lightness she used when trying to steer conversations off cliffs. Not dismissive, just confident. Like she was the one clarifying my confusion, not explaining away her own. I didn't mention the rideshare receipt yet. I wasn't ready to tip that card. Instead, I nodded slowly. "He was in your car after the offsite?" "Yeah, I gave him and a few others a ride home," she said, breezing past me to grab her bag. "Everyone was tired. I was just being nice." "You're seriously suspicious of a jacket?" That's when the shift happened, not in her voice, but in her posture. She angled her body slightly away, defensive but polished, as if rehearsed. "It just surprised me, that's all," I said. She leaned in, kissed my cheek. "You're sweet when you get weirdly territorial." I laughed, but something about it felt like I was acting in a scene I hadn't auditioned for. Later that evening, after dinner, we came home and settled onto the couch. She poured us wine. I tried not to watch her too closely, but I couldn't stop noticing all the little changes. Her makeup more sculpted than usual, her perfume different, something deeper and floral I didn't recognize. As she scrolled her phone, I saw a flicker on her screen. A preview of a photo. Just a thumbnail, but enough to see. It was her hand holding a wine glass, the same deep red she was sipping now. Next to it on the table was a man's wrist, close enough that it had to be someone sitting beside her. The sleeve was tailored. The watch was sleek and silver. It wasn't mine. I didn't say anything. I kept my face neutral, like I hadn't seen it. She locked her phone and put it face down without hesitation, then looked at me and smiled. "I'm glad we did this tonight," she said. I smiled back. Me too. That night, when she fell asleep, I lay there in the dark, wide awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word. The thing about Lauren was that she was meticulous. She didn't stumble. She edited herself in real time. That always used to impress me. The way she kept calm under pressure, the way she handled conflict with logic and grace. But that night, it terrified me. She'd explained everything with such clean, mechanical precision. Jacket? Eric's. Key card? Obvious. Rideshare? For a coworker. She stripped every detail of its context, presented it clinically, like exhibits in a courtroom. Each item on its own was harmless. But when put together, they didn't belong in the same story, not unless you told a different version than hers. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But I felt it. And once you feel it, really feel it, you can't unfeel it. After that night, something in me shifted. Not in a dramatic, crashing down kind of way. More like when you finally hear a strange noise that's been in the background all along, and suddenly you can't stop hearing it. That's what suspicion felt like. Like a sound I couldn't unhear. Lauren's explanation stuck, kind of. I wanted it to stick. I wanted to believe that the jacket, the hotel key, the rideshare receipt, all of it could still fall under misunderstanding, if I just gave her the benefit of the doubt. So I tried. For a few days, I told myself to let it go. Focus on work. Stick to routine. Trust. But small things started accumulating. And the thing about small things is, they don't stay small for long when they start forming patterns. Her schedule was the first thing that warped. She used to get home around 7, usually a little tired, always asking what we should do for dinner. It was our rhythm. Quiet, steady, familiar. But after that weekend, home by 7 started slipping. First it was traffic. Then last-minute meetings. Then something came up and she wouldn't be home until 9. Then 10. Then on one Thursday night, she didn't get home until nearly midnight. No call, just a text around 10:30. Still at the office. Don't wait up. Love you. I lay awake that night, phone resting on my chest, eyes staring at the ceiling, telling myself that late work didn't automatically equal something sinister. She worked in marketing. Deadlines piled up. Offsites, presentations, client pitches, all of it could make sense. But it was becoming a routine, not an exception. Then her phone behavior changed. Lauren had always been casual with her phone. She left it lying around, answered messages in front of me, sometimes asked me to read things aloud while she drove. But suddenly, it started living screen down on every surface. When she left the room, the phone went with her. At night, instead of sitting on the nightstand where she used to charge it, it began sliding under her pillow. I'd hear the soft buzz of notifications, followed by the shuffle of her adjusting in bed and typing replies while pretending to be asleep. I didn't confront her. I just watched. Then came the restaurant charges. We had a shared card we both used for groceries and the occasional takeout. I logged in one afternoon just to make sure the bill was paid on time, and noticed a charge from Il Rosso, the romantic Italian spot where I'd taken her for our second anniversary. The receipt was from the same night she'd claimed to be working late. 2 entrees, 2 drinks, no takeout indication. I stared at the screen for a long time, then closed the laptop. No confrontation. Not yet, but the pieces were adding up. She also started wearing a new perfume. Something richer, muskier, expensive. Not the soft lavender scent she used to spritz behind her ears when she got ready in the mornings. This one was different, and it lingered on her clothes even after she came home. I asked about it once, casually. "Oh, it was a birthday gift from one of the girls," she said. "You like it?" I nodded, even though it didn't feel like a gift. Felt like an identity shift. Something she'd picked for herself or for someone else. Another time, I asked her to share her calendar, just to sync weekend plans. We used to do that without thinking. She hesitated, smiled, said she'd clean it up a bit first. That version never arrived. I got more careful after that. I wasn't looking to prove anything yet, just watching, tracking what changed and what didn't. Her smartwatch used to ping location data to our shared fitness app. We'd both use it, compare steps, tease each other on lazy days. One morning, I noticed her location was no longer updating. It had stopped syncing about 2 weeks ago. I asked about it once. Lightly, "You stop using the step tracker?" She barely glanced up from her phone. "Oh yeah, battery died. I need to resync it or something." 2 weeks later, still no location data. Still something. It wasn't proof, but it was consistency. Every detail that didn't add up was quickly deflected with a casual shrug and an answer that sounded perfect on paper. I remember the day I drove past her office. It was a Wednesday. She told me she was working late again, finalizing reports. I happened to be in the area, picking something up. It wasn't meant to be surveillance. I just wanted to see. Her office lot was empty. Not just sparse, fully empty. No lights on. Not a single car in sight. I didn't even stop. I drove past slowly, heart thudding, telling myself there could be a dozen reasons. Maybe she was out at another branch. Maybe they were off-site again. Maybe. That night, I checked her calendar again. A new entry had been added, retroactively, about a client dinner starting at 6:30. Added after the fact. I checked the calendar metadata. Created at 10:54 p.m. 2 hours after she'd gotten home. I didn't know what to do with that. It all felt so slippery. Nothing I could point to and say, "Here, this is the moment it broke." But everything smelled like something had already snapped, and I was the only one pretending it could be fixed. Then the neighbor said something. Mrs. Hayes, from 2 doors down, the kind older woman who baked cookies for the holidays and always had something to say about the weather. She saw me bringing groceries in and stopped me for a quick chat. "Lauren's been working hard." "Huh?" I saw her the other morning, must have been around 6. She was just getting home. I froze. 6? Yeah. She was in heels too. She laughed. I thought maybe she had an early meeting. I almost waved, but she looked half asleep. I smiled politely, said something like, "Oh yeah, she's been swamped." Then went inside and stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at the wall, groceries still in my hands. I didn't mention it to Lauren. What was the point? I knew she'd explain it, spin it into something benign just like everything else. Maybe she'd say she stayed with a coworker after a late meeting, or she lost track of time catching up with an old friend, or it was a networking event that ran late or early. She was always ready with a version that smoothed out the jagged edges. But by then, it wasn't about the jacket, or the wine glass photo, or the missing smartwatch data, or the dinners she never ate. It was about the rhythm of lies, how they kept pace so perfectly with the rhythm of her days. Every part of her life had become a clean surface with just enough polish to keep me from asking deeper questions. Still, I kept pretending not to notice the way she started double-checking if I'd be home or not. Pretending not to notice how often she wore makeup now, even on days she used to call no-effort Mondays. Pretending the warmth in her smile didn't feel scripted. There's a kind of heartbreak that doesn't come from being yelled at or betrayed outright. It comes from watching someone become a stranger in your own house. Quietly, gradually, without any single moment you can hold up and say, "This is where it happened." And yet, I knew it had already happened. The worst part? She still kissed me goodnight, still curled toward me in her sleep like everything was normal. And I let her, because some part of me wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. The woman I loved was gone, and someone else had taken her place. It happened on a Tuesday. By then, the questions weren't questions anymore. They were confirmations I hadn't spoken aloud. I'd already stopped asking myself whether Lauren was cheating. What I wanted now was something clear, tangible. Not for confrontation, I wasn't even sure I had the stomach for that yet. I just needed the truth to leave the realm of speculation. I needed to see it. And then the universe or fate or chance, whatever name you give those cold coincidences, gave me exactly that. It started with an email. We still had a shared Gmail account from years back. Something we used for signing up to streaming platforms, travel confirmations, the kind of thing that gets cluttered with spam. I hadn't checked it in months. But that morning, while cleaning out my inbox, I stumbled into it. Just habit. And there it was. Subject line: Your romantic getaway is confirmed. Sender: Linden View Hotel. Timestamp: 8:02 a.m. First, I just stared at it. My brain refused to register it as real. But then I opened it, and everything fell into place so fast it made me physically nauseous. 2 guests. Dinner reservation. 7 p.m. Garden Room Restaurant. King Suite reservation. Check-in at 6 p.m. Room 412. Name on the reservation: Lauren Hall. There was no ambiguity. No rideshare receipt to debate. No cropped photo to interpret. No vague calendar entry to decode. Just an official confirmation sent to our inbox. Proof so careless it felt like an afterthought. Maybe she thought that email would go to spam. Maybe she thought I'd never see it. Maybe she didn't care. I read it twice, then again. The words didn't change. Dinner. Wine pairing. A note added under special requests. Please have the fireplace lit before arrival. I closed my laptop slowly and sat still for a long time, heart pacing without direction. This wasn't a suspicion anymore. This wasn't me piecing things together like some paranoid spouse. It was a direct hit, and there was nothing left to argue with. At 5:30, I got in the car. I didn't have a plan. I wasn't going there to scream or make a scene. I wasn't going to throw anything, break anything, or beg for an explanation. I wasn't even sure I wanted to be seen. I just needed to see it for myself. The real thing. Not another theory or half-story. The truth in motion. Undeniable. The drive was long and silent. October haze hung over the roads. My hands gripped the wheel the entire time. I kept waiting for the part of me that would say, "Turn around. You don't need this." But it never showed up. Whatever that part of me was, the one that used to protect me, had gone quiet. I parked across the street from the Linden View Hotel just before 6. The place was beautiful, I'll give them that. Modern exterior, glowing windows, warm lamps lining the entrance. A valet in a dark suit ushering guests toward the door. The kind of place where nothing terrible could possibly happen, unless you knew what to look for. I waited in the car, engine off, windows cracked. At exactly 6:17 p.m. I saw her. Lauren. She stepped out of a black rideshare, heels first, then the long curve of her coat. Her hair was pulled back into a sleek twist. Not her usual ponytail or bun, but something deliberate, styled. Her makeup was perfect. Her lips painted a deeper red than I'd ever seen her wear on a weeknight. I barely recognized her. It was like watching a version of my wife that only existed in someone else's life. And then he stepped out behind her. Eric. She hadn't lied about his existence. I recognized him from an old office party. Tall, square-shouldered, too much cologne. He placed his hand on her lower back as they approached the entrance. She didn't flinch. They walked together like they'd done this before. At the hostess stand, they spoke briefly, then laughed. At what, I couldn't tell. The way they looked at each other made it clear that this wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an it-just-happened situation. Their fingers intertwined as they followed the hostess inside. Eric's hand stayed on the small of her back the whole time. My hands shook, but not from rage. From disbelief. Because even after everything I'd seen, the schedule shifts, the face-down phone, the photo on her lock screen, some part of me had still hoped I was wrong. That maybe, just maybe, I was the one spinning stories. that I'd wake up to find I'd blown it all out of proportion. But there it was. 2 people. A dinner. A hotel suite. A night planned down to the fireplace. They had rehearsed this evening. Booked it. Anticipated it. It wasn't spontaneous. It was structured. The world didn't end in that moment. The sky didn't crack open. Nothing exploded. It was worse than that because everything stayed normal. Traffic still rolled past the windshield. The valet still smiled and opened doors. Someone across the street laughed loudly on a phone call. Everything kept moving. Only I had stopped. I sat in the car for another 20 minutes, watching the windows where I assumed the restaurant sat. Occasionally, I caught glimpses of figures through the glass. Silhouettes, flashes of candlelight. I couldn't see them clearly. Didn't want to. It was enough. At 6:42, I turned the key in the ignition and drove home. No texts from her. No updates. Nothing at all. By 9 o'clock, the house felt foreign. The furniture sat like museum pieces. Our framed wedding photo on the bookshelf looked like it belonged to strangers. I didn't turn on any lights. Just sat in the kitchen, staring at the empty space where she usually dropped her keys and told me about her day. I imagined her laughing into her wine glass, leaning forward while Eric whispered something meant only for her. I imagined the walk to the elevator, the way she probably brushed her coat off and smiled at the front desk staff. Room 412. Fireplace lit. A script followed step by step. At some point, I opened my phone. Not to text her, just to see if she'd posted anything. She hadn't. Of course she hadn't. I don't know when I fell asleep, but when I woke up on the couch around 2 a.m., she still wasn't home. 3:15, I heard the key in the lock. I stayed still. She walked in quietly. Her heels clicked once, then stopped. I could hear her setting them down. Then the gentle thump of her coat sliding onto the hook. She walked past the living room without realizing I was awake. She didn't say a word. She never even looked my way. And maybe that silence, that total effortless omission of me, was worse than anything she could have said. That was the night I stopped pretending. By morning, her side of the closet was empty. That's how I knew it was over. Not through a fight, not through some grand, tearful confession, just space. Empty hangers clinking together like a wind chime every time I opened the door. Her shoes were gone. The shelf that once smelled faintly of her perfume now smelled like cedar and dust. On the nightstand sat a single folded note. My name on the front. Nothing else. Inside, I'm sorry for everything. Please don't reach out. It's better this way. No signature. No love. No goodbye. Just clean detachment. Her handwriting tight and even, the same way she used to write grocery lists. I stared at the paper until the words blurred. I wanted to feel something sharp, something explosive. But all I felt was the hollow quiet of relief and grief twisted together until I couldn't tell which was which. I didn't call her. Didn't drive to her office. Didn't chase her down like the version of me she used to depend on. The one who fixed things, soothed things, negotiated his way back to calm. That version of me had been quietly dismantled months ago, one half-truth at a time. The divorce started almost immediately. No fights, no lawyers circling for blood. Just paperwork. Efficient, transactional, polite. We exchanged the necessary signatures through a neutral third party. Uncontested, they called it. I didn't even see her face again. It was like closing an account, not ending a life. I sold the apartment within 3 months. I couldn't stay there. Every wall echoed differently. Too quiet where laughter used to be. Too familiar where I wished it weren't. The bed felt like it still held her shape. Even the bathroom mirror seemed smaller, like I took up less space in it without her reflection beside mine. I boxed up our life in silence. Wedding photos, vacation souvenirs, the ceramic mug she bought from a roadside shop in Vermont. Each item went into storage or the donation bin. I didn't want reminders, only absence. Absence felt easier to manage. Chicago came next. A job transfer opportunity opened up. I said yes before they even finished explaining the relocation package. I packed what little I cared about. Clothes, a laptop, a coffee maker, and left the rest behind. The drive took 2 days. I didn't play music once. The city was loud enough to drown things out. Anonymous. Perfect. At first, I buried myself in work. 12-hour days, training sessions, client pitches, whatever filled the clock. Coworkers thought I was ambitious. In reality, I just didn't want to think. The nights were harder. The silence had weight again, pressing against my ribs when I lay down. I'd roll over instinctively, expecting to see her there, and each time, the emptiness felt new again, like the first night all over. Sleep became an unpredictable thing. Some nights I drifted off early, exhausted. Other nights I'd lie awake, scrolling through old text threads I should have deleted, the little love yous, and don't forget dinner messages that meant nothing and everything now. Eventually, I started turning my phone off before bed. It was easier than watching the screen glow with no reason to glow back. I stopped checking social media, stopped looking for her name. If she wanted to disappear, I'd let her. There was no closure waiting in photos or status updates, just a digital echo of someone who no longer existed in my orbit. Months passed in that blur, the kind of months that stack on top of each other without shape. I went to the gym because motion felt better than stillness. I ran along the lakefront in the mornings, the wind sharp and clean, the skyline rising like a wall of glass. I kept running until my lungs burned, until I could pretend the ache was physical, not emotional. People came and went, coworkers, neighbors, strangers in coffee shops. I smiled when I had to. I even went on a few dates, half-hearted things that ended politely. Nothing stuck. I wasn't looking for love. I was looking for quiet that didn't feel haunted. Time, they say, heals. I'm not sure that's true. I think time just teaches you how to live around the wound, how to build new habits that curve around the missing piece. By the 1-year mark, I'd almost mastered it. The ring stayed in a drawer, untouched. The papers were filed and final. The memories had dulled into background static. But sometimes the smallest triggers pulled me back. A song from one of our road trips playing in a grocery store. A woman in a gray coat who walked the same way she did, fast, shoulders squared, purposeful. Or worse, the scent of that perfume she switched to near the end. I catch it in an elevator or passing on the street, and for a split second, my body would react before my mind caught up. That instinctive recognition, that sting. I never let anyone see it. On the outside, I was composed, stable, recovered. Inside, I was a museum of locked rooms. Even my parents stopped asking about her eventually. They'd learned to read the tone in my voice when I said, "I'm doing fine." And in a way, I'd built a new life. Quieter, simpler, self-contained. No lies, no second-guessing. Just work, solitude, and control. But control has a way of hardening into something else. I started avoiding anything unpredictable. I planned my days down to the hour. I kept my desk spotless, my fridge organized, my clothes folded the same way every Sunday. It wasn't about neatness. It was about rewriting chaos into something I could manage. I told myself that was healing. Every now and then, I'd catch myself wondering where she was, if she'd stayed with Eric, if they'd lasted, if she ever thought about me when she saw something familiar. A coffee mug, a street we used to walk, a random email from a hotel she once used for lies. Then I'd shut it down. Curiosity only reopens what's already scarred. The day I finally threw out her note, the one that said, "Please don't reach out," I didn't feel catharsis, just emptiness. I tore it into neat strips and dropped them into the trash. Watched the white paper vanish under coffee grounds and eggshells. Felt fitting, domestic, unceremonious. Like the end of a dream you stop remembering halfway through the day. After that, I slept through the night for the first time in months. People talk about closure like it's a door you choose to close. But in my experience, it's more like a slow fade. The sound of something familiar growing quieter until you realize it's gone. You don't close the door. You just stop noticing it was open. That's how it happened with Lauren. One day, I realized I hadn't thought about her in weeks. The name didn't sting. The memories didn't flare. She'd become something flat. A fact, not a feeling. And for a while that was enough. Until the day I saw her again. But that part, That shock, that strange return, came years later when I thought the story had already ended. 3 years had passed. 3 years of rebuilding, rewiring, and learning how to live without looking over my shoulder. By then, Lauren had become more memory than person, like a photograph stored in a box you don't open anymore, not out of pain, but because there's no reason to. I'd built a new rhythm. Quiet mornings, steady work, gym after hours, a few close friends who didn't ask questions unless I offered answers. Life had become manageable, predictable, even peaceful in a strange, sterile way. Then came the client meeting. I was working for a new firm by then, strategic development for mid-sized brands. We were prepping for a major onboarding presentation with a company called Orvium, a fast-growing tech-adjacent marketing group looking to scale aggressively. I'd read the briefing packet inside out, memorized projections, budgets, personalities. Everything felt in order. Until the day of the meeting. It was a conference hall, one of those modern glass buildings in the West Loop, filled with echo and natural light. Rows of chairs, coffee urns along the sidewall, name tags pre-printed and organized alphabetically. I'd been in 100 rooms like it. Nothing about it should have felt different. But as I walked through the wide double doors, clipboard in hand, I heard the name. "And here's our new head of marketing," someone said. "She just came on board from a project in Toronto." Then I saw her, Lauren. Hair shorter now, styled in soft waves. A navy blazer over a cream blouse, heels low but polished. She was mid-step as she entered, a stack of folders in one arm and her other raised in greeting. For a second, her expression was businesslike, professional, ready to lead. But then our eyes met. That moment, only seconds long, stretched out until the entire room felt like it had stopped breathing. Her hand didn't finish the wave. It just hovered awkwardly in the air, then dropped as if it lost all strength. Her eyes widened, mouth slightly open, no words forming. The color drained from her face. Her body seemed to lock up, not like someone surprised, but like someone whose entire reality had just been pulled out from under them. The people around us kept talking. Someone cracked a joke. A laugh echoed from the corner of the room. But all I could see was her, frozen, pale, and completely undone by the sight of me. She tried to recover, straightening the folders in her arms, blinking like she'd seen a ghost. But the damage was done. Whispers began immediately, 2 people in the same industry, same room, and suddenly one of them looks like she's about to collapse. Someone nudged the presenter with a confused glance. The tone of the room shifted. You could feel it, the unspoken electricity of something being very, very off. I didn't move. I just watched. And I'll be honest, part of me took a kind of quiet, grim satisfaction in that moment. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I needed her to hurt. But because for the first time since all of it happened, it wasn't just me carrying the weight of what she did. Now it was in the open. Her carefully rebuilt image cracked. Not because I said a word, but because her own conscience did the breaking for her. We didn't speak that day. After introductions were made, Lauren excused herself from the session. She didn't come back. Later, someone on our team asked, "What was that about?" She looked like she'd seen a car accident. I just shrugged. No idea. That should have been the end of it. A strange coincidence. An uncomfortable blip in an otherwise clean new life. But it wasn't, because a week later I got reassigned. The official reason was project synergy. The client wanted cross-department coordination, and I'd been looped in to assist with data migration and digital cleanup on Orvium's back-end systems. I wasn't thrilled, but I kept my mouth shut. The pay bump helped. My access came with admin privileges to their shared drive. Thousands of files, folders, old invoices, contracts, scanned receipts, the usual mess. Most of it was harmless. But one folder caught my eye. It was labeled Old Archive. The LV standing for Linden View, I assumed. And just like that, the name snapped me back to that night 3 years ago. The restaurant window, the laughter, the lie that finally became undeniable. I clicked in. Most of the documents were corporate expenses, vendor payments, room bookings for events, travel reimbursements. But some were different. Tucked away inside a nested subfolder labeled Personal understanding was a collection of files clearly not meant for client review. There were draft Word documents, untitled, unformatted, mostly just blocks of text. One was a stream of consciousness rant. Lauren's voice, unmistakable in tone. Why do I still think about that night? The room was too quiet. I wanted to feel excited, but instead I felt like I was waiting for a storm. I thought Eric would make everything better. I was wrong. I was so wrong. We weren't a new chapter, just a different kind of silence. Another one was a diary-style entry about the aftermath. She wrote about waking up and knowing I was awake before she said a word. About seeing me in the kitchen the next morning and how she couldn't breathe from the guilt. Most shocking was a spreadsheet labeled MSG_ Consulting Invoices 2020-2022. MSG Monarch Strategy Group, a boutique vendor Lauren once recommended at her old company. But these invoices didn't look like normal marketing transactions. They were padded, vague. Strategy sessions, internal trust building, narrative reshaping. The charges were consistent, often recurring. The signature field was blank, but the document metadata revealed what I needed to know. Created by Eric Wallace. Last modified by Lauren Hall. Thousands of dollars. Months of activity. I didn't fully understand it, but I understood enough to know something was wrong. Someone was moving money under vague terms, and both Lauren and Eric's names were attached to the trail. And then it happened. A sticky note appeared on my desk. No envelope. No context. Just 7 words scribbled in tight black ink. Stop digging. You don't want this. No signature. But that only confirmed what I already suspected. I had touched something real. Something they had buried. And now someone wanted me to leave it alone. I didn't. But I didn't go full whistleblower either, not yet. I just made backups. Quietly. Sent copies to a secure personal drive. Changed nothing in the original folders. I played dumb. Business as usual. But I watched everything differently now. Every call, every status update, every quiet hallway glance between Lauren and the rest of her team. She was unraveling. You could see it in her posture. The polished exterior had cracks she couldn't patch anymore. And me? I was steady. For the first time, I wasn't the one hiding. Assigned to clean digital archives, I found Lauren's private notes, confessions of regret, fear, and emptiness after the affair. Tucked beside them were vague, recurring invoices from Monarch Strategy Group, all tied to Eric and approved by Lauren. It looked like quiet laundering. The next day, a sticky note appeared on my desk. Stop digging. No name, no denial, just confirmation that I'd uncovered the mess they left buried. I sent the evidence to internal audit, anonymously. Eric was pulled from the project. Lauren resigned days later. A month passed before she reached out, worn down and remorseful, handing me a flash drive. Full records of the scheme. We turned it in, no drama, no words left to fight over. That night, I dropped my old wedding ring into the river. It sank without resistance. So did the life I once fought to keep, long after it had already ended.